Segment: PA Prince Andrew. Photos: when Prince Andrew signed a 75-year lease on Royal Lodge, backed by an £8.5 million upfront payment and a token yearly fee, it was seen as a privileged deal. But decades later, the property has decayed so badly that he's walking away with nothing. The nearly £500,000 he expected in return for leaving early has been erased by neglect, electrical faults, structural problems, and overall deterioration. If you love getting the real story behind the palace walls, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. The Crown Estate's recent inspection has made it clear this isn't a residence anymore. It's a liability. Despite the generous lease, Andrew's financial missteps and the mounting cost of upkeep have turned a royal stronghold into a failing estate. This isn't just about one mansion. It's about the final erasure of Andrew's royal identity. As legal steps continue to revoke his remaining titles, including his membership in the Order of the Garter, the palace is closing every door once open to him. Royal Lodge, once a refuge, now mirrors his isolation. The move-out timeline may legally stretch into 2026, but symbolically, his departure has already begun. You wouldn't think that a 30-bedroom mansion on royal grounds would end up in this kind of shape. But somehow, Prince Andrew managed to let one of the Crown's most historic and once glamorous properties fall into such disrepair that it's now officially, and quite literally, worthless. At least in the eyes of the Crown Estate. Nearly £500,000. That's the amount Andrew was expecting to receive as compensation for giving up his lease on Royal Lodge. A payout that, under normal conditions, would have been a formality. But that was before a recent inspection revealed what can only be described as a disaster zone. The mansion is reportedly in such poor condition that the compensation has been scrapped entirely. If you love getting the real story behind the palace walls, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. The deal is dead, and Andrew is walking away with nothing. Segment: PA Prince Andrew. Photos: this wasn't just some overlooked property tucked away in the royal portfolio. Royal Lodge had a reputation. It was once a gleaming example of royal living, set in Windsor Great Park, surrounded by manicured gardens and centuries of legacy. But after years of neglect, financial strain, and what appears to be a prioritization of surface-level upgrades over structural upkeep, it's now one of the monarchy's biggest headaches. And this isn't just about one crumbling house. It's about a prince who's been clinging to the last remnants of his royal status that's being pulled from him piece by piece. As a condition of Royal Lodge declined, so did Andrew's standing. His titles? Stripped. His honors? Revoked. We're talking about historic orders like the Order of the Garter and the Knight of the Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order. Gone. And now the last thing tethering him to royal life, his grand estate, is falling apart, both physically and contractual. Let's rewind to the start of this deal. Back in 2003, Andrew secured a 75-year lease on Royal Lodge by paying a massive £8.5 million upfront. The annual rent? A peppercorn. Symbolic. Essentially free. On paper, it was an unbeatable arrangement. But what wasn't included in that deal was the cost of maintenance. And maintaining a 200-year-old mansion is no joke. Segment: IL Royal Lodge. Folder not found. Create new folder. Royal Lodge. Over time, things started to break down. Major repairs were needed. Roof issues, electrical overhauls, foundational assessments. The kind of repairs that, if ignored, can send a building into a fast-track decline. And yet, for years, these problems were either postponed or ignored altogether. Now, the cost of simply keeping the lights on at Royal Lodge is estimated to be around £30,000 a month. That's not even counting the repairs needed to bring it back to standard. We're talking staffing, heating, insurance, security. Every month, that bill rolls in. For a property that currently offers more problems than prestige, it's no wonder the Crown Estate wants out. But despite the staggering state of the mansion, Andrew still technically holds a lease. And that's where this whole situation gets tangled. Legally, he can remain at Royal Lodge until October 2026. That's right, almost 2 more years of this royal standoff. Yet sources suggest he won't make it that far. The expectation was that he'd be out by late February 2023. Clearly, that didn't happen. But with increasing pressure, both financial and political. It's just a matter of time before the doors are shut behind him. What's waiting for him after that? Nothing's been confirmed, but rumors suggest a move to a smaller property within the royal estate network, possibly Sandringham. Though, as of now, it's still a cloud of uncertainty. And while Andrew figures out where to go, the Crown Estate is preparing for the next phase. Once it's out, a full structural assessment of Royal Lodge will begin. And based on what's already been found, the repairs won't be cosmetic. We're talking deep, structural interventions, roof replacements, electrical rewiring, potentially even foundational reinforcement. Repairs that could cost hundreds of thousands of pounds, if not more. The kind of overhaul that not only demands resources but also time. It's a massive undertaking, but for the Crown Estate, it's necessary, not just to preserve the history of the building, but to turn a costly liability back into a functional royal asset. The longer it sits untouched, the worse it gets, and the harder it becomes to restore. All of this adds to the larger story. The monarchy isn't just cutting ties with Andrew publicly, they're systematically erasing the infrastructure that once enabled his royal lifestyle. The formal revocation of his titles isn't symbolic. It's a legal process, with notices served and orders updated. His being removed from the books, literally. No more honorary roles. No more ceremonial privileges. He is no longer a working royal. And Royal Lodge, in its current state, is no longer a livable royal home. It's not just a fall from grace. It's a free fall. And the fallout extends beyond Andrew. The condition of Royal Lodge has become a matter of institutional concern, not just for what it says about him, but what it reflects about the monarchy's ability to manage its assets. This was a property with heritage, with symbolism. Letting it fall into decay under the watch of a disgraced royal, that's a reputational risk the Crown doesn't want to carry, which is why this isn't just being handled behind closed doors. This is a reset, loud, clear, and very public. It also brings up questions about how the monarchy moves forward. How do they manage other royal properties to avoid another Royal Lodge situation? How do they enforce standards, leases, and accountability when working royals are no longer working, but still living like they are? And perhaps most importantly, what precedent does this set? Because when someone like Prince Andrew, a man one considered a central figure in the royal ecosystem, can be stripped of his titles, pushed out of his estate, and left without compensation, it sends a very clear message. No one is immune. Not anymore. And while the lease may technically give him until 2026, the writing is on the wall. The repairs can't wait. The money isn't there. And the institution is done shielding him. So now, it's a waiting game. When does he leave? Where does he go? And what happens to Royal Lodge once it's finally back in the hands of the Crown Estate? Those questions are still hanging. But one thing is certain. The royal safety net, as Prince Andrew knew it, has collapsed. The titles are gone. The estate is a wreck. And at nearly £500,000 payout, never arriving. Let us know what you think. Was a Crown Estate right to deny compensation? Should Andrew be allowed to stay through 2026? Or has at least already overstayed its welcome? Drop your thoughts below. Hit like if you're following every twist in this royal unraveling, and make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the scandals and meltdowns that redefine what royalty really means in the modern world. So here we are, with Prince Andrew still holed up in a mansion that once symbolized royal permanence, now reduced to a decaying burden that no one wants to claim responsibility for. And even after being told no compensation, no payout, no privilege, he remains legally entitled, but increasingly unwelcome. That's the strange tension of it all. On paper, Andrew's lease is solid. 7 to 5 years. Signed in 2003, backed by an upfront payment of over £8.5 million. That contract gives him the legal right to stay until October 2026. But contracts don't account for scandal. They don't account for public embarrassment. And they definitely don't account for a crumbling property that's bleeding money just by existing. £30,000 a month. That's the estimated minimum it costs just to maintain Royal Lodge right now. Not to improve it. Not to renovate. Just to keep it running. Heating, staffing, insurance, and security across a freezing, oversized estate where the pipes groan and the roof leaks. For the Crown Estate, it's a nightmare asset. For Prince Andrew, it's the last trace of a royal identity that's been otherwise dismantled. And dismantled it has been. Systematically. Deliberately. The removal of his royal honors hasn't been handled with quiet discretion. It's been formal, structured, and very public. We're talking about legal notices. Striking him from the records of royal orders. Unregistering him from the chivalric institutions he once boasted in his bio. These aren't just ceremonies on pause. They're titles gone for good. That matters, because in the world of British royalty, titles aren't just decorations. They are currency. They are legacy. They are your invitation to the inner circle. Strip them away, and you're not just left without status. You're left outside the system entirely. And now, with Royal Lodge deteriorating and his name erased from the honor rolls, Andrew is quite literally watching his royal footprint shrink beneath him. Even the timeline of his exit is murky. People have been predicting his departure for well over a year now. February 2023 was floated as the expected move-out date. That came and went. Still, the legal complexities of his lease mean he could dig in and stay until 2026. But will he? It's unlikely, because every extra month he stays, the pressure increases, the property worsens, the costs rise, and the optics, they keep getting uglier. What used to be framed as a family home is now just another problem on the Crown Estate's balance sheet. The minute Andrew leaves, a full-scale assessment begins. And not the kind that ends with new curtains and a fresh coat of paint. We're talking foundational surveys, roof inspections, complete electrical rewiring, potential structural reinforcement. The whole 9 yards. All because the estate has been so neglected that it now needs a rebuild just to be considered habitable. And all of this? It traces directly back to one very simple failure. Maintenance. Because no matter how big the house is, or how grand the lease terms are, if you don't take care of the property, it falls apart. And that's exactly what happened here. Years, maybe decades, of avoiding the hard, expensive work. Maybe Andrew thought the Crown would step in. Maybe he thought the rules didn't apply to him. Or maybe he just didn't want to spend the money. Either way, the result is the same. A royal estate that once hosted dignitaries and family milestones is now a broken-down liability. One that's so financially toxic, even the promise of nearly £500,000 isn't enough to justify keeping Andrew around. That's the thing. He was supposed to be compensated for leaving early. It was part of the original deal. If he gave up the lease before 2026, he could recoup part of the upfront payment. But that only worked if the property held value, if it was in good condition, if it could be reassigned or reproposed easily. Instead, it's been left to rot. And now, with the cost of restoration potentially stretching into the hundreds of thousands, the Crown Estate has flatly said, "You're not getting a dime." And they're not wrong. In fact, their refusal to pay is less about punishing Andrew and more about protecting public funds. Because while the monarchy technically owns Royal Lodge, it's managed by the Crown Estate, an independent body that operates in the public interest. They are not just royal landlords. They are accountable to the state. And shelling out £500,000 for a ruined property? That would be a scandal in itself. So no payout, no negotiation. Just a firm exit strategy and a mountain of repairs waiting on the others. The irony here is almost too sharp. Andrew, once known as a spare with all the perks and none of the pressure, is now boxing by a lease he can't benefit from, and a house he can't maintain. And it's not just about logistics. It's about legacy. Because whether he stays until 2026 or leaves tomorrow, the story is already written. The headlines won't read Prince Andrew exits lease early. They'll read Disgraced Prince loses mansion in state of ruin. The optics are permanent now. The narrative is locked in. And what about what comes next? There's been quiet talk of moving Andrew into a smaller royal property. Something within Sandringham, perhaps. A modest, tucked-away place that doesn't cost £30,000 a month just to keep above freezing. But even that isn't guaranteed. Every option involved political calculation, public opinion, and internal royal decision-making. Because even housing Prince Andrew, at this point, is a risk. No one wants a PR disaster looking like he's being rewarded with a new estate after everything that's happened. So he waits. And the monarchy waits. And Royal Lodge, it just keeps falling apart. The saga had become a kind of metaphor for the modern royal family, an institution trying to move forward while still shackled to its crumbling past. Because Royal Lodge isn't just a house. It's a symbol. And right now, it symbolizes everything the monarchy is trying to leave behind. A former prince, stripped of titles, clinging to a deteriorating mansion he can't fix, costing tens of thousands every month, and offering no path forward. That's not royal. That's tragic. And maybe, on some level, that's the point. Because what this entire episode shows, beyond the scandals, the legal drama, the real estate chaos, is that the monarchy is willing to make hard choices, to draw lines, to say, no more. Andrew may still technically be a prince by birth, but in practice, every royal tie has been cut. And the last one, the physical one, the estate itself, is now on the chopping block. And it really does say something, doesn't it? That the same Prince Andrew who once traveled the world representing the monarchy, who rubbed shoulders with foreign dignitaries and was treated like royalty in every corner of the Commonwealth, is now at the center of a real estate debacle. Not a quiet exit, not a graceful retirement. A full-blown, headline-dominating mess over a house that has literally started to crumble under the weight of its neglect and his. Because this isn't just about dilapidated floorboards or outdated electrics. It's about what happens when the last vestiges of royal privilege are no longer protected. When the institution decides that appearances matter more than loyalty. When the monarchy says, enough. And the thing is, this didn't have to happen. Andrew had every opportunity to maintain Royal Lodge. He had the resources, the staff, the time. The lease wasn't some trap. It was one of the most generous arrangements anyone in the royal orbit had ever been granted. A 75-year deal for a peppercorn rent? That's unheard of, especially when the property in question is a 30-bedroom mansion with deep ties to royal history. But instead of preserving it, he let it rot. Maybe he underestimated how closely the Crown Estate was watching. Maybe he thought he could outlast the scrutiny. Or maybe, most likely, he thought the rules didn't apply to him. That there would always be a buffer, a favor, a quiet bailout when things got too far out of hand. But that buffer is gone. That version of the monarchy doesn't exist anymore. Under King Charles, the tone has shifted. The slimmed-down monarchy isn't just about cutting ribbon ceremonies and trimming the royal calendar. It's about accountability, optics, tightening the books. And that includes refusing to keep subsidizing dilapidated mansions just because someone with a title still happens to live in them. And while Andrew's lease still technically holds up, the moral lease, the one that justifies his presence in the eyes of the public, is long expired. Because at the end of the day, this is a man who's lost everything that once legitimized a position. The royal patronages? Gone. The military roles? Gone. His public-facing duties? Stripped. The Her Royal Highness styling? Officially retired. And now the house, his last remaining stronghold, is on the verge of slipping out from under him. It's not even subtle anymore. The legal documents that revoked his honors weren't hushed up, they were served. Processed, filed, the same way any ordinary citizen would receive notice that their time was up. That's the level it's been brought down to. And that's by design. Because every part of this transition, every title removed, every privilege denied, every repair refused, sends a message, not just to Andrew, but to anyone watching. The monarchy is drawing lines, rewriting the rule book, making it clear that reputation and responsibility do matter, even behind palace gates. And the public has noticed. Gone are the days when private royal dramas were quietly handled in the background. Now, every financial detail is scrutinized. Every decision about property, funding, and title usage is fair game for debate. And rightly so, because the costs, in cases like Royal Lodge, aren't just Andrew's problem. They fall on the Crown Estate, and by extension, the taxpayers. People want answers when nearly £500,000 is almost handed out for a house that's reportedly falling apart. And the answer, this time, was a firm no. That nearly £488,000 Andrew expected as a kind of consolation prize for turning over his lease? Not happening, because in the eyes of the Crown Estate, there's nothing to compensate for. The house is in such poor condition, it has no transferable value. It's a financial liability, not an asset. Which means that not only does Andrew walk away with nothing, he walks away as the reason it costs even more. The repairs are now projected to hit hundreds of thousands of pounds. That's after he leaves, because only then can the full assessment begin. And that might be the most absurd part of all. That the Crown Estate is stuck waiting for Andrew to pack his bags before they can even start calculating the damage. Because yes, technically, he can stay until October 2026. That's what the lease allows. But what good is a lease when the roof is caving in? When your continued presence only deepens the PR damage? When your name is attached to a house that's now being described with words like uninhabitable and dilapidated? It's not a royal residence anymore. It's a liability with a postcode. And that puts Andrew in a very strange place. Not just physically, but symbolically. He's still in the royal world, but not of it. Still occupying royal space, but with no official function, no title, no role. Just a shell of a mansion and a lease that everyone would prefer he give up. But so far, no firm date, no formal exit plan, just speculation and delay. Which raises a bigger question. What happens after Royal Lodge? Where does Andrew go? There's been talk of moving him to a smaller residence, possibly within the Sandringham estate. Something more manageable, less public. But even that comes with complications. How do you house someone who has been so publicly disgraced, yet still technically remains a part of the royal family? It's a logistical problem wrapped in a reputational crisis. And let's be honest, no matter where he goes, it will be downsizing, drastically, because after Royal Lodge, there's nowhere left to retreat. This wasn't just a home. It was a fortress, a final symbol of status, independence, and relevance. And now it's cracking at every corner, literally and figuratively. When he leaves, and he will leave, it won't just be a move. It'll be the end of the last chapter of Prince Andrew's royal life. A quiet, heavy-footed retreat from public view, with no fanfare, no title, no grand exit, just another door closing behind him. And when that happens, the repairs begin. The Crown Estate will step in, contractors will flood the grounds, scaffolding will rise, and slowly, painfully slowly, Royal Lodge will be pulled back from the brink. But it won't be Andrew's anymore. And even if the building recovers, the association with him will linger, a stain on the estate's long history. The house that was let go, the prince who let it fall. So what do you make of all this? Is the Crown Estate doing the right thing by cutting the financial cord? Should Andrew be forced to leave before the 2026 deadline, or does the lease entitle him to stay as long as he pleases? And what, if anything, should happen to Royal Lodge once it's restored? Should it go to another working royal, or be open to the public as a lesson in accountability? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This saga is far from over, and we want to hear where you stand. Hit like if you think Royal Lodge deserves better than this mess, and subscribe for more no-fluff breakdowns of the scandals, shake-ups, and slow-motion downfalls that remind us all no one's untouchable, not even in a palace.